Welcome to Extra. I'm Joanne Hines.
And I'm Georgia Lash. Here at Extra, we bring you expanded coverage of recently broadcast features from Sun City News.
Remembering last month, we had our share of chilly days, perfect weather to stay inside, curled up with a good book. Georgia, tell us about some novel selections that you had.
February's Meet the Author event was a double-header with two authors visiting Sun City. I had a chance to read their books and both were very good reads, and I got to learn more about their literary process. Let's start with author Kerry Peresta. Kerry, I've had the good fortune to just complete reading your newly released novel, The Deadening.
Thank you.
What do you want your readers to feel when they pick up that book and start reading?
Well, I think the first thing they're going to feel is shock, then astonishment, and then as they get past the first few pages, horror. How would you feel if you woke up in a bed, heard voices around you, and did not know where you were, couldn't remember anything, and then you tried to move to ask somebody what's happening? You couldn't speak, you couldn't open your eyes, you couldn't see, and you couldn't move.
You feel that pain when you read it, so that is what I felt, so you're not wrong. Now, I was heavily invested in your main character, Olivia. What was the inspiration for her character?
It's a great story. When I was a new author, my first book, The Hunting, came out in 2013 or 14, and I went to an author signing event, and we were in a library. The authors were all around the perimeter at tables, and people would slowly weave in and out. Everybody's table was deserted except one table where this author was holding court to this big crowd of people, and they would leave with the book happy, chirpy, chatting her up, and we just all looked at each other. Well, after 30 minutes or so of nobody coming by my table, I just made a beeline over to her table and I said, "What is with you? What is your secret? Why do you have all the business and all the audience in this room?" And she said, "Well, it's an interesting story." She laughed. You could tell that she'd heard this before. And she had been in an automobile accident a few years ago, and she had fallen into a coma. They did not think she was going to make it, but she did. And she said when she arose, she was a completely different person. Instead of shy and a wallflower, she was now aggressive and chatty and excited about people and relational. So the thing is, these people, they could not go past her table without her chatting them up. And so she said, "I guess it works because I sell a lot of books that way." That was my inspiration.
Well, that sounds like Olivia.
Yes.
With missing the two daughters, maybe. But
yes.
Again, I sense just from the way you've been answering that I can understand now you've started some of your writing career in humor.
Yes.
So magazines, humor, novels,
Yeah.
suspense fiction.
Yeah.
Which do you feel is more fulfilling for you?
Well, I think there's different types of fulfillment. So with the humor column, I did that on a lark. We lived in South Dakota at the time, and I was friends with the editor, and he liked a letter to the editor I wrote, and he asked me if I'd be interested in a humor column, and I said, well, yeah. It's when I first started writing, and I'm like, I would have written anything just to put a toe in the water. And so it was wonderful to write in 700-word sound bites, and I just normally go to a humorous event, and I was a newlywed at the time, and so most of it was about newlywed struggles, which everybody could relate to, although my husband was kind of like, "Hey, would you quit using me?" But that's how I started. It was very fulfilling that everyone kind of knew me around town, and I became a little instant celebrity that way. But I always wanted to write books. And the fulfillment was the attention with the humor and just the satisfaction of getting it done quickly. It took a lot of work, but it was more quick than a book, obviously. The fulfillment with a book is that it takes so much research and so much thought and so much time and so much editing that it is such an accomplishment when it's done that you're just glad it's in print and out there.
Next up is author Linda Lovely, whose books relate to us so well, as you will hear. Linda, I had so much fun reading this book, Neighbors Like These. I'm not alone though, because I read a couple of your reviews, and one from your fellow novelist, Tammy Hogue, where she calls it the twisty mystery, and it's I'm going to absorb that term from now on.
Right.
So give us the premise of the book, this fun book that you've created.
Well, the heroine is a recently retired Coast Guard investigator, and she lives in the Low Country, and her mother lives in an HOA. And she also has a family friend from childhood who has created a company that manages a number of HOAs. So when the first murder occurs and his company is blamed for causing a caustic environment in the HOA, she doesn't buy it. So she gets involved in investigating what's the motive and why the person died.
Now, this is so relatable to anybody who's lived in an HOA, also known as Sun City. So, were these characters at all personally someone that you might have known? Did you base it on anybody like that?
Well, the characters are all amalgams of people, and yes, everybody that I kill in a book, I've known. So that's one of the joys of writing, is that you are able to do that without any penalty.
Okay.
So that's one of the fun parts of writing, and you can come up with very creative ways to do away with them as well. So
I think a lot of us also fall in love with books that are setting in areas we love. And you've set this in our beloved Low Country. Why that choice?
well, I've written 9 books, and all but one are set in places where I've lived. And I lived in the Low Country for 12 years and love it. And I also chose it because there are so many homeowner associations in the area. So it gave, if I have one of my main characters managing HOAs, there were lots of opportunities. What I wanted to avoid was the murder she wrote, where you're in one HOA and you've killed off half the population with a series. So this way I can spread out my murders across a number of different HOAs.
Now, a question I had for you, and now that you've mentioned you kill off people, that you definitely have based the character on a real person. How else do you develop your characters?
Well, the heroine, for example, I always want to make sure that they are someone who have the skills to solve a mystery. So in this case, it's a retired Coast Guard investigator. So she has experience in investigating to begin with. So she's not a hobbyist or somebody who, is a pet sitter or
Cupcake baker.
cake baker, right. So she has the tools to begin with. And she's a strong-willed, all of my heroines are very strong-willed, independent women, and smart, and can get the job done.
Yeah, she's friendly but smart.
Yes.
That's good.
So I did interview a number of Coast Guard retirees to do the book, and I always do that when I'm doing research. And I went on Facebook, I looked for people that were in private groups that were Coast Guard retirees. I found women, and then I called and asked them if I could do interviews with them, and got a lot of background then for the characters. So that's one way. And as far as HOAs are concerned, I've been president of an HOA, and I was in a HOA council that had about 15 other HOA presidents in it. And I've heard a lot of stories.
Oh, they're there, that's for sure. They are there. And as I said, I could take you and drive you around and find some of these characters. Please check the lifestyle schedule for upcoming Meet the Author dates. This is a free event, and you readers will truly enjoy these. Joanne, what's up next?
Our Sun City TV news anchor, Norma Taylor, checked out the recent CPR/AED training event, and she had the chance to speak with Bluffton Township Fire District Lieutenant Veronica Gutierrez and CPR recipient, Sun City resident Darla Frey. Let's listen.
Well, I'm here with Veronica Gutierrez, who is a lieutenant with the Bluffton Fire District. And Veronica, why are you here in Sun City today?
So today we are going to be conducting CPR class for some of the residents within the community of Sun City.
And what are they going to learn? Learning to save a life, possibly?
Possibly, yes, ma'am. So in today's class, we will be covering infant CPR, child CPR, and adult CPR, as well as infant to adult choking, and what to do in the situation if anybody were to find themselves in an emergency situation.
Good. What motivated the fire department? Were you asked to do this?
CPR is important because during that time that our emergency groups and crews are trying to respond to homes or anywhere out in the environment or in the community, that early intervention of CPR, it allows for the blood circulation to continue and for the heart to continue pumping to help potentially keep that person alive until we can arrive and do further intervention.
Well, I'm here with Sun City resident Darla Frey, and she's at the CPR class today. And Darla, you have firsthand experience. Tell us about your experience.
So I am a CPR survivor. Last March, I went down on the tennis court in sudden cardiac arrest, and bystanders performed 6 minutes of CPR on me. And then fire department medics came and they shocked me twice, and they kept me going. So yes, I'm a survivor.
Well, how did it happen? I mean, did you just go down? Were you going for a ball? How did it occur?
It was sudden cardiac arrest, which is different than a heart attack. So there was no pain, there was no warning, there was no shortness of breath. I literally was going to step and hit a ball, and I just collapsed on the court.
So if it wasn't for someone, and you had 4 people helping you, if it wasn't for someone knowing how to perform CPR, what could have happened?
I wouldn't be here today. They are my 4 angels for sure. People stepped up, and they weren't afraid, and they never gave up. 6 minutes is a long time to perform CPR on someone. One of them did it for 3 minutes, and then they switched, and somebody else did it for 3 minutes until the fire department came to relieve them. But they never gave up, and they said they wouldn't have given up if it had needed to go on longer. So I am eternally grateful. There aren't enough words to thank people for what they did for me.
And you said one of the people was singing a song?
Yeah, the way they do it now is compressions are the most important thing, and doing pretty quick compressions. And, you know, after you're doing it for a bit, the momentum was waning, and one of the husbands stood there and would sing the song Staying Alive, because that's the proper tempo for CPR. So it's a good one.
It kept you going, right, Darla?
It absolutely kept me going. It brought me back to life. I mean, let's just be honest.
Oh.
It's a true miracle.
And what a wonderful feeling. And so now you're here taking a class to possibly save someone else's life.
That's right. I mean, you can't, people came up to my angels and said I could never have done what you did. But if they hadn't, I wouldn't be here. So it's better to do something than to do nothing.
That's a great way to end an interview, Darla. And we're so glad you're here, and thank you so much for your story.
Thank you.
Well, when I do mine, I want to bend at the hip. This arm is rigid. All right, and I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Get real close, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's valuable information.
Yes, Georgia, and you got some interesting information. Share what you learned about our bird population.
Each year, the Sun City Bird Club participates in the Audubon Society Christmas Bird Count. I learned how the count works and its results.
Noah, for those that are unfamiliar,
What is the annual bird count all about?
Well, the Christmas bird count started in 1900, and it was in competition with a hunting program that started in the 1800s to see how many birds a group can kill. Ornithologists got together and decided that that was not a good way to continue the bird population, so they started the Christmas bird count around 1900. And actually, it's about the same time that Audubon began its career and helping to preserve birds and the environment.
Now, how many Sun City volunteers did we have participating this year?
Well, we had two events. We had a golf course event, so we had teams going on each of the golf courses, and there we had 4-member teams, 2 per golf course, so that would give us 12 total teams for the golf courses. And then we had 9 teams going through the community, and so probably a total of 75, 78 people were involved.
That's a pretty heavy-duty effort. Is there any particular requirement or training to be a volunteer?
Well, the teams are set up so that we have a captain, somebody who keeps count and writes down the birds, the species, and the numbers. We have 2 spotters and a photographer. So those four skills. So if you're a photographer, even not an excellent photographer, that's fine. We just need somebody with a camera in case we see a bird that we can't identify. To take notes is not a big deal. Being a secretary would be fairly simple. And usually we have one bird expert who can identify the species.
Okay, now we need the results. What did we see here?
Well, Sun City did quite well. We had over 65 species and over 2,000 birds counted. And it was not a great day for birds. It was fairly cold in the morning. We start early in the morning on the golf courses to avoid competition with the golfers. Later in the day, as it warms up, more birds do come out, and our count goes up at that time.
Now, the data that we've collected here in Sun City, were there any surprising or unusual results?
Not really. We don't have the numbers of certain birds like goldfinches. We normally have quite a number of goldfinches, but we didn't have them this year. But I would say there wasn't really much difference in what we've had in the past.
And our data collection, does it contribute to another bigger set of data that's collected?
Oh, absolutely. The Christmas bird count is the largest citizen science project in the world. This is a worldwide count. It's not just South Carolina or even in the United States. This is counted in Canada, Costa Rica, and all over the world, Russia. And we belong to a circle, and it's Collarton and some of the other plantations in the area. So all our data goes to Chris Marsh, Dr. Marsh in Spring Island, and he then takes all that data and sends it to Audubon.
Well, it's nice to see us fostering this nature that we are so fortunate to be blessed with here in Sun City.
I absolutely agree. What people need to understand is one of the purposes of the Christmas bird count is to check on the environment. These birds are very sensitive to temperature change, and what we're looking at is birds that are coming in that we normally don't see. And the best example of that is our population of wood storks. 10 or 15 years ago, we never had wood storks. They were birds in southern Florida, central Florida. But because of population changes in Florida and the loss of habitat and the change in the environment, these birds are now in South Carolina, which is good for us, but not good for the environment. We have to be very cognizant of what's happening with temperatures in our area.
We hear about the black-belly whistling ducks, for example, that hadn't normally been here in South Carolina. Is that a true story?
Well, the whistling ducks were more a southern bird. We just recently, in the last 15 years, started to get whistling ducks, and it's wonderful to see them. They're really fun. They're actually nesting here. They have 10 to 15 chicks, so it's real fun to see a mother at the front of the line and the dad at the back of the line in this long bunch of chicks walking across the road. But just a caution, please don't feed them. Number one, it's illegal, and number two, it's health-wise, it's not a very good thing for the ducks or us.
They are adorable. I've been blessed with having those at my lagoon.
Absolutely.
And I think we're all blessed with all the things that we get to see. Thank you for the information that you feed us with in the Bird Club.
Oh, you're more than welcome. one of the goals of the Bird Club is to educate the population, not just birders, but other people, so that we're an environmental group, and if you want birds, you have to support the environment.
There's always so much to learn about the natural habitat of Sun City.
Well, let's finish with our last story on the popular Creative Visions show. Joanne, catch us up on this year's event.
Everyone gets excited for the Photography Club / All About Art Club collaboration. Once labeled Double Vision, the 2022 show was reimagined as Creative Visions. Our Sun City News anchor Norma Taylor got ahead of the event by meeting some of the participating pairs to learn about the process involved in the show.
Tell everyone, what is Creative Vision?
Well, Norma, I see Creative Vision as a way to bring the community together around the visual arts. We used to call it Double Vision, and the intent was to display the artwork of both a photographer and an artist around a common visual theme or entity. The photographer took the picture and the artist would create their vision of the picture. Sometimes it can be hard to tell which is the photograph and which is the painting or the drawing, but it's a fun event.
Tell me, your partners here, artist and photographer, how are the partners chosen?
Well, I can tell you that the partners are chosen in a random drawing. We don't know who our partner is going to be ahead of time, and that's part of the excitement of the show. We get together in the fall and pull names out of a hat, and we're introduced to our partners, exchange information, and go from there.
Norma followed up with opening night at Creative Visions and the announcement of the winners. Let's take a look.
I'm here with Diane Braden, the photographer, and Jan Urbanek, the artist. And your photo is called
Morning Blush at Fish Hall Park.
Okay, and tell us about this photo.
It's on the island, and my husband and I like to go there and walk at sunrise. It's a beautiful beach and not quite as populated or busy as some of the others, so it's just a favorite place of ours, and I captured this one morning on a walk.
And Jan, how did you decide on this photo?
Well, Diane was nice enough to pull about 7 photos up for me, and this one caught my eye. I love the colors. I like the movement of the line and the sky, so that's how we got it. That's how we chose it.
And how long did it take you to do this?
This took me about 2 months.
2 months. We're here with Tom Mills, the photographer, and Nancy Hall, the artist, and this is second placed overall of all the entries in the pairs. Tom, how did you select this wonderful photo?
This was a guy who was playing the violin on a street corner in Charleston one day, and the thing that caught my eye about it was that bright red violin, almost an orange red, and he's wearing a sweatshirt, and if you look closely, you can see his cap is real stained and sweaty. And then the most interesting thing is these long, beautiful fingers he's using to play the violin, but his fingernails are absolutely filthy. It looks like he came from repairing a car before doing this. So it's a lot of contrast. It makes it kind of an interesting street picture.
Well, Nancy, how did you get that down and dirty look into your artistry?
Well, it was a process. And I did try to put those dirty fingernails, and the hardest thing for me, and working on the surface of a 1978 record, was the layers that it took to get those vibrant colors.
I'm with Linda Moore,
Hi.
photographer, and Cynthia Byers, the artist. And really, you can't tell the difference. You start, Linda. Tell us about how the selection came about.
Actually, I have to give her the credit. I take pictures. She's the one that picked this picture for the Creative Vision. So,
Cynthia, you did a great job. I can't tell one from the other. How did you do this, and how did you select this particular one?
Well, Linda has lots of gorgeous pictures and lots of birds, and I had chosen 3 or 4 of them to think about, and when I got home and was having kind of a stressful day, and I looked at these little squirrels, and they thought, there's going to be relaxing to paint these guys. So that was kind of my first choice. at least when it started anyway.
How long does it take you to do something like this?
I do not keep track of the time. That would spoil it. It does take a bit of time because there's lots of layers with watercolor.
That's Extra for March. I'm Joanne Hines. Please check out the program guide in Sensations and the Sun City website for our other Sun City TV monthly shows.
And I'm Georgia Lash. Thank you for watching. Please join us again next month as we bring you extra coverage of stories and features from Sun City News.